Welcome, everybody. This is all about succession planning for leaders and how we as leaders can make succession planning easier, not only for ourselves, but for our teams, our board members, the people around us. And it's important on a variety of levels. And many people think succession planning is just about the person who's sitting in the chair at the top. But Meredith, that's not really true, is it?
No. One of the reasons we wanted to write this book is exactly for the reason that you're looking at this picture right now, wondering who's going to get that seat, who's going to fill your shoes. And but it isn't just at the C-suite level. It isn't just at the owner position of the company. What we're talking about with succession planning, which is so critical right now, is do you have people, do you have talent, do you have leadership depth throughout your organization at every single level? Because right now, if somebody gets sick, if somebody needs to be out taking care of a family member, if who knows what happens, they just get the opportunity to spend a few weeks at home. Do you have somebody ready to take their place? So succession is about building leadership at every level of your organization.
And Meredith, you have certainly seen this throughout your career. For people who don't know you, can you give us a little bit of background on you?
Sure. I am a business strategist. My passion is really helping organizations build the talent, whether that be traditional leaders, sales leaders, emerging leaders at every level of their organization. I'm an award-winning author, a keynote speaker, and as I said, a business strategist. So Mary, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, as you know, I spent about 26 years on active duty in the Navy, and I was fortunate enough to lead some of America's finest in about 9 different countries. I lived in Asia most of my Navy career, and I was able to lead multicultural teams to do things like counterterrorism, and I'm a former intelligence officer, and I was a former chief of police and an HR director, and I was part of the team that ran Pearl Harbor. So I'm used to dealing with a lot of migration of people. And this is one of the aspects that I talk to my corporate folks about, because the military has to plan for people leaving their jobs. We get transferred every 2 to 3 years. And that is a huge change when you think about you've got a turnover of 33 to 50% of your people every single year. So let's get to it. It was such a pleasure when we started to strategize about what was necessary to put together this idea of a book. And then as we wrote this book, we realized that there was even more that we could offer our clients who really needed some help walking through the process. So Meredith, do you want to talk about how the tools workbook came into play?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that Mary and I were passionate about when we created this book was to make it easy, was to make it simple. I mean, succession planning can feel so overwhelming for people. So the tools book was a natural outgrowth of the book, Who Comes Next? Leadership Succession Planning Made Easy. We wanted to put together the actual tools that you need, make it really simple for you, that you just fill out these sheets. It tells you exactly how to put each strategy into place and gives you basically a roadmap to take the book, everything that you've read and learned, and implement it and execute it. And that's where the power of succession planning is.
And we are so excited because, you know, we're doing this webinar today, and we really know that people are feeling the crunch now. So we're doing this quick webinar today, but we also want to make sure people get amazing value out of what it is we're offering. And this is one of the bonuses we're offering today, and this is not in any way a sales pitch. We really just want to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible. So right now, throughout the month of March, when people go online on Amazon and they get the book, Who Comes Next? Leadership Succession Planning Made Easy, all they have to do is send the receipt of that to info@productiveleaders, and we'll say this again at the end of the webinar, and they're going to get that ebook of all of the tools, and that's about 60 pages of the actual tools, templates, forms, everything Meredith and I use when we go into Fortune 500 companies and our $10 to $20 million companies, and we do their succession planning for them. These are the exact tools we use. So we are giving that away today throughout the month of March, because we just feel like people are in a crunch period. Meredith, do you want to add any of that?
That's exactly right. I mean, let's get to it. I just put in the chat, if you have questions, please weigh in. Also, you're going to walk out of here with 3 strategies you can put into place and an opportunity to get the tools.
Absolutely. And one of the areas where we know that organizations struggle is developing a leader's mindset. And sometimes it's even that leader who struggles with their own mindset. You know, what do I do when I retire? Nobody else can do this job as well as I can. Other people aren't going to know what I know. And a leader's mindset is not just the outgoing leader's mindset, it is also the mindset of the leaders who are up and coming, your senior folks, your mid-level managers, and your young talent. We have to develop a leader's mindset for everybody. And part of that comes from making sure you've got a healthy strategic planning plan. And many people say, you know, I've got a business strategic plan. And then we ask the question, you know, what happens if there's a crisis like right now? What happens? What is your contingency plan for your overall strategy long term? And then do we have the right leadership bench in place to make sure that our people are comfortable with the new roles and responsibilities that they have to assume in case something happens, or with just the natural progression of human migration throughout the workplace? And we've all seen this. You know, our CEOs, many of our CEOs in America are only in their job, about 40% of them are only in that job for about 18 months. So if there is a gap or something happens, they get promoted, maybe they decide to retire, maybe there's a health crisis. And Meredith, you just wrote about this with Jamie Dimon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, Jamie Dimon with JP Morgan Chase, I'm one of those people that unfortunately is a news addict. So I watch the news all the time. And Jamie Dimon is on the news quite a bit. You're really talking about the financial markets and things. And when he had his heart issues, I'm not exactly sure if he had a heart attack or what exactly happened, but it makes you think about, do you have somebody in place to take over, to really be in a position to lead that organization? And I wrote an article about that on LinkedIn, and we can put it here in the chat notes, but it really talks about some of the things that JP Morgan did so well to not only have leadership succession to take Jamie Dimon's place and to keep the continuity of the company, but how they build it at every level of the organization.
And they've really planned. They've planned.
Yeah, they call it, I love this. They said that they call it the, what happens if Jamie gets hit by a bus plan. And I think I love the fact that they put some humor, you know, into it, but they were ready to go in a second. And that's how fast change happens. It happens in a second, and they were ready to go. So I love this slide because it's no longer a question of simply finding talent. We need to build it. I think that's crucial.
You're absolutely right. And it's not just us. It's right now, we're a nation right now in crisis. We're a world right now in crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the CNBC survey found that 28 million small businesses currently operate in the US, and more than half of the owners are over the age of 50. Think about that. More than half of the owners are over the age of 50. And while 78% of those owners intend to sell their businesses when they retire, only 30% had taken the time to develop a viable succession plan. Something I want to say about that is, if you intend to sell the business, it does not have as much value if you don't have succession in place. There are so many magical things about succession, and just one of them is that it makes the business you have that much more valuable.
It really does. And we've got to make sure that we are responding to all levels of crisis. So right now, yes, we're in this pandemic moment, but your crisis could be maybe your senior engineer, who is the developer of your products and services, suddenly gets sick or has to care for a family member. It could be that somebody gets a promotion and they wind up moving really quickly. It could be almost anything.
It really could be. I mean, there's, you know, there's the idea that, you know, Mary, we've talked a lot about this, especially with the younger generation, but I don't know, I feel this way about myself too, is that when I worked in corporate, I really had about a 3 to maybe 7-year time frame. I wanted to move on. I wanted to learn to do something different. And we've got to begin to change our mindset as to how long people are going to stay, you know, stay with us. And really having those people in place not only makes them want to stay, but it gives you the depth you need, that if people leave, you've got another option.
That's exactly right. And we know right now, by the way, that 71% of millennials are currently searching for their next job. And of the millennials, I'm not digging on millennials in any way, shape, or form. We all know, well, Williams on the call, but we Navy people know that the average person, the average age on an aircraft carrier, they're only 19 and a half years old. So I love my millennials, as you know, but they tend to only stay in a given job about 2.6 years. And before people all get, worried about that, the average boomer only stays in a job 4.4 years. So this idea that we have to be planning for the next person moving on up is really critical. And sometimes people don't want to approach their boss and have that conversation. Hey, where am I going to be in a couple of years? Do you see me moving on up? Because if you don't, I kind of need to be looking somewhere else. And sometimes board members don't address CEOs because they're afraid, oh gosh, if we ask our 78-year-old CEO, when are you thinking about maybe retiring, they might get offended. Maybe they're the owner of the company or the founder of the company. And the issue though is your employees are looking at their senior leadership and they're wondering exactly those questions. And if your employees don't feel as though they've got an opportunity to move on up, they will find another place to go. And we explored this in the book, that your customers are looking at this as well. They want to make sure that organization is going to be solid, that people in charge know what's going to happen next, that they are also planning for the future.
One thing I love about that is the importance of stability is going to be more important than it's ever been in our society. When we come out the other side of this crisis, and we will come out strong, you want to be a company that shows stability, because in uncertain times, people are looking for anything that looks steady, they can believe in, and they can trust. And succession planning is a big piece of that.
And certainly it's the leadership that makes that stability happen. It is leadership that combats the uncertainty, the panic, the fear, the frustration. And we as leaders have to move forward. So Meridith, how do we do that?
Well, we got to get a plan, right? I mean, that's where we start. And we're going to get into the key takeaways now. Certainly Mary and I couldn't tell you everything that is in the book, but we wanted to make this webinar worth your time and return on investment. So what we've done is we've pulled out basically 3 of the things that we think are a really good place to start. Here's the beauty of them. We're not only going to show you what's in the book, but we're going to show you what's in the workbook, the tools book as well, so that you can see how we explain the principle, but how we give you opportunities to basically put it into place. Mary, why don't you walk us through the strategic visioning planning questions?
So this is part of the aspect of the book, as we talk about putting together a plan. And it is a little bit of an effort to get people to think about, how do I put this together? What do I need to do next? And then we say, you've got to have a strategic vision and a strategic plan to move forward. So some of the questions we like to ask people are, what are the benefits you deliver for your customers for the future? What are the other benefits you provide beyond just stability? And if, for example, and this is happening right now, if your current products and services and delivery maybe became obsolete or switched, do you have a backup plan? What can you do to provide benefits to your customers? And how are you going to change the scope of your industry? You and I, Meredith, talk all the time about how people, they are really worried about what's going on in the world right now. And what we're doing is, okay, how are we going to pivot? That was your term. How are we going to pivot and provide even better services to our people? How is our industry going to change? And what can we offer that our competition can't? Do we have opportunities to meet other needs for our customers? What other target markets can we serve? And how can we position our organization to be the market leader, the thought leader, the leader of our industry? And if we were going to just start our company today, what would we do differently? So do you want to talk a little bit about how we can be more proactive?
What I love about this worksheet is, if you notice at the top, it says for the planning team. And a theme you are going to see that we talk about with succession planning is you need to get the monkey off your back as a leader, and you need to engage other people in the process and solving the problem and coming up with the ideas. Why? Because they're going to have great ideas, but the other is they're going to support those. They're going to get excited about those. So when you walk through a process like this, I want you to just take a moment and think about, If you spend some time with a planning team, with people that you see as your high potentials, walking through these questions, coming up and brainstorming with things, it would accomplish two things. Number one, it would give you some really great ideas and allow you some flexibility. But the most important thing is that you would have a strategy and you would have a plan no matter what the marketplace is doing.
That's exactly right. And it's very hard sometimes for people to take the time to think these thoughts. And right now, while many people are working from home and struggling to maintain that focus, I think now is a great time to be proactive and really brainstorm with your people. You can do it on a platform like what we're doing right now. You can do it virtually. You can do it on a phone call and ask your people, what other factors are going to be impacting us and what other forecasts. And the forecast right now is changing every single day, but it's always changing. We are living in a time of rapid change, and the change is always going to be there. And we as leaders have to guide our people through this change. One of the aspects of the book is about how you lead people through change when it's tough, when it's difficult for them. And we talk about that J curve of change. But we also ask other questions when we're doing the strategy on how do you respond to changes from your consumers? What do consumers need from you? And what solutions, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask, is what solutions are you providing that your customers don't even know they have that problem yet, and you're already there with the solution? I love that. And then there's certain steps you can take right now to increase your team's efficiency, their productivity, and their performance. And how can you take this and extend it even further into the future? And this all provides even more value to the shareholders. And then you and I talk all the time about making sure that we are responsive and flexible all the time with the changing needs of the organization, again, our employees, as well as our customers.
I think the biggest thing that this sheet does is it begins to condition your team for change. And coming out of the military, if you want people to be good at something, you've got to get them in shape for it. And what this does is it gives you an opportunity to condition them and to get them in shape. By constantly talking about change, they get used to change. They get comfortable with change. And then when change happens, they tend to roll with it much easier. And that's a big piece of what you've got to teach, not only yourself as a leader, but those next level leaders. So
there's a great book out there called The Idiot's Brain. And what's really fun about that book is it neurologically looks at our brain and how we react to change. And what's interesting is the habenula of our brain naturally resists change. But then once we go, oh, we can't procrastinate anymore, we really have to do this, we're actually very fast to adapt. And that's what's so interesting to me, is that we can use agility and innovation and even changing environments to make our organizations and our products and services better. So let's get into the mindset part of this, Meridith.
Let's go into the key takeaways, the biggest things that you're going to walk away, the things that you can implement right now. And number one is something that Mary already touched on, but it's mindset. It's understanding that you've got to shift your paradigm as a leader to understand that the highest and best use of your time is developing your leadership bench. Listen, there is no competitive advantage you have left other than the people who work with you. It is your greatest opportunity. Like it or not, our products or services have become a commodity, that there's nothing that we sell that our customers don't believe that they can't get from somebody else. So it isn't what you do in today's marketplace, it's how you do it. And how you do it has everything to do with the team you surround yourself with. So shifting your mindset to understand the power of that. Listen, when Mary and I started researching this book and doing the work on this book, one of the biggest things that we found were the CEOs of today's most successful companies have moved the job of leadership development into their chair. They may work with other people on the team, but if you ask them what their responsibility is, they'll say certainly driving revenues, those types of things, but they will tell you that it is talent development. So you've got to get that mindset piece down first and understand that the opportunity for growth, development, and expansion going forward, competitive advantage, dealing with change, it lies in you focusing your energy on finding the best talent to fill that pipe. And now is the best time you've ever had. What we're going through is going to displace people like crazy. And is when you get ready to bring people into your organization, you're really going to be in a wonderful position to choose.
I think you're absolutely right. And so we put together, just right before this program, we wanted to add in this piece on change management because most people do really struggle with change. And this is why this has moved into the leader's chair. We have to recognize what's going on with our people. We have to keep our team members more informed than ever. We think we're doing a good job with communication now. We have to step it up. We have to make sure that we are hearing the concerns that people are articulating, but also the concerns they are not telling us. We have to be we have to be looking at things through their eyes and the impacts that it's having on them. There's a lot of unintended consequences that are happening as we make any kind of shift. And that includes a leadership shift. So this is one of the worksheets we use all the time. And then point number 5 on this, it's one of my favorite points because this is what we talk about in the SEAL team community. And of course, I wasn't a SEAL person, but the SEALs talk about this all the time. And they say, calm is contagious. When we say remain calm, calm is contagious. And we want to make sure we're acknowledging the emotional side of the change, but we also have to make good decisions based on facts, not opinions, not emotions, but facts. And we have to move things forward. And we have to be really honest about the future. What's going to happen? What's realistic? What's not realistic? And then we have to make sure that we not only trust our people to do their job, but we help them trust us in turn.
Yeah, all great points. And I think that managing and helping people through change is just critically important. All right, so this is one of my favorites. If you are going to build a succession plan, you need to create your succession plan avatar. You need to create your perfect employee. One of the biggest challenges we see when people go out to decide who their next level leaders are is they don't really have a clear picture in their mind of who the best leader is. So now is a great time to take a breath and build your leadership avatar. What you need to do is really write down who have been your best employees in your organization. When you think of perfect, who do you come up with? And what you'll see is it's beyond skills. It's beyond experience. It gets into the values. It gets into their track record. Because the better you understand your ideal leader, the better you will choose your future leaders. Mary, I think we have a guide on this, don't we?
We absolutely do. Of course, we have a form for this.
Exactly. So this sheet is fantastic. Again, you have to realize how much turnover costs you, how much putting the wrong leader in place costs you on so many levels. So you don't want to make that mistake. So you create your leadership avatar. And basically 1 through 6 is going to walk you through the exact steps of exactly what you need to do to create the perfect avatar. And it's a simple list, but it gets you and every other leader on the same page. The reason that we like to use this is we were working with a client, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago. And when you had 4 executive leaders in the room and you asked them to list the top employees, everybody had a different list. And one employee may be amazing for one leader, but isn't quite as leadership material in another area. So basically, in the interest of time, I won't belabor this, but it's an important exercise and you need to get this one down first.
And that's one of the exercises that we do spend a lot of time with, because again, we get into the individual strengths and also challenges that every single person has. But then when you're looking for that perfect leader, you're also looking for that leader, not just to fill the job that's vacating now, but the job that you need that person to do 5, 10, 20 years in the future.
Yeah, because it's going to be a different leader, right?
Absolutely. And this is so easy to get overwhelmed. So Meridith, this is where you say start small. Tell our folks what you mean by that.
Well, I think that a succession planning process, one reason we put it on the shelf and don't want to deal with it is that we make it overwhelming. We think we have to do succession throughout the organization. And you've got to understand that succession planning is a domino effect. You start in a small area and all the dominoes will fall eventually. So we tell people, and we go over extensively in the book, to start small, to look at the critical areas of your organization. What are the 3 or 4 departments that would stop if you didn't have the right leadership in place. Then who are your critical team members? These are the team members that you would literally sit down in the middle of the floor in your office and bawl your eyes out if they left, let alone they left to go to your competition. Start with those areas and those leaders and create a mini succession. You start with that mini succession, and then you can build another tier and another tier and another tier. And before you know it, you'll have a full succession plan. But this would be a great thing to do right now, given that you probably have some downtime, but just start small. Just start to look at those critical areas.
And we do this all the time in the military. So this is actually a real picture of one of our Navy ships. And you have to remember that sometimes we give tours, and civilians are always surprised at how many people we can cram into small spaces. And the idea is we know that we have to plan for different people moving in all the time. And this is actually birthing on one of our Navy ships. And this is where and William, this probably makes your stomach a little sick just looking at this again, but this is actually how we work. And we are used to sharing resources, sharing spaces, but also sharing what we know. And this is a critical component in the military for turnover. For the military, in the Navy, we have a turnover binder. The Army calls it a contingency binder or a continuity binder. And we have to make sure that the knowledge we have is captured somewhere so that we put this in a binder so that we make sure our successors are successful. And this was one of the aspects that was kind of a surprise to me when I moved into the civilian business world, that many people were they kind of thought that their legacy was minimized if the people coming after them were even more successful, that if the organization prospered and grew after they left, that they somehow felt that that was their failure. And I say it's exactly the opposite, that the organization you build now, if you do it right, will be your legacy moving into the future. And this is our turnover by design. You have to make sure that you reiterate the vision that you have. And how do you clarify and reiterate that throughout the organization? We have to train all the time and make sure that our people know exactly what they have to do to be successful and what they need to do in order to move up. We plan for our replacement success. We share our knowledge openly, and we assign people to help new people coming into the organization. And that's a whole different section that we have on onboarding. We don't have time for that right now, but it's
But lucky for you, we are going to continue to do webinars on this subject. And the next book that we're working on right now is Me Next, Career Development Made Easy, working title. But listen, this can be an overwhelming subject. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can turn. And what we wanted to do with this webinar was to put you on the path to get you started. So let's just review that one more time. Get your mindset right. Understand that the highest and best use of your time is on developing your employees. Start with that avatar, create and understand who you're looking for before you go searching, and then start small.
And Meridith, it really does come all down to leadership. What it is our leaders need to be doing right now to take the proper action to move the organization forward.
So here is the part that we are so excited about. We have a bonus for anybody listening today and anybody listening to the recording. You can get the book on Amazon, email the receipt to info@productiveleaders.com, and you will get the tools e-workbook for free. That is a $29.95 value. We lay out all the tools. It is basically the complement to the book that is going to make implementation and execution, which is what everybody wants, so easy.
And it is slightly different if you decide to get that tools workbook online. And again, this is not a sales pitch, but there's a code in the Amazon book that is online, the tools workbook. And that also allows access to the vault. The e-workbook doesn't have that code, unfortunately, but the tools workbook that is on Amazon does have the code to the vault with all of those tools as a fillable PDF as well. And Mare, where did we say we're going to put a lot of our free stuff, like our free succession planning plans, some free chapters? Where did we say we were going to put that?
That is on the vault, correct?
I think it's in the whocomesnext.com website.
Right. It's there.
Here too. And what I love about working with Meridith, I just have to share with you folks, is that we love doing this program We do this together. We do it separately. We've been fortunate enough to work with organizations, and we go in once a month and do training. We do people's full-on succession programs. We will design it for them. And people can contact one of us or both of us or whatever. And they kind of, even if they just contact one of us, they get both of us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we do keynotes, workshops, day-long programs, year-long succession design, anything you need to get your succession planning moving.
So with that, we will open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions, please type it in the chat and we will respond to you right away. But thank you so very much for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure, Meredith. It's always so much fun to work with you.
Oh, always great to work with you too. And really want to reiterate just what an important subject this is. And thank you for your time today, because it's, you know, while everybody may be at home, we still have a lot of work to get done. But again, really want to leave you with the idea that this is one of the highest and best use of your time, strong return on investment. And we hope to make this an easier strategy for you.
And with that, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. We will be sharing the recording and the resources. Take care.